So it took me forever to do my makeup today for this video, and at first, I thought it looked like garbage, but it's kind of growing on me. I'm kind of digging it, so like hopefully my makeup for this video looks okay. We're just gonna hope. Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to be telling you guys some embarrassing stories from my past. So if you guys saw recently, I did a collaboration with my roommate Justine, wherein we talked about our most embarrassing cosplay experiences, and one of the stories that I shared was about me as a young nerd doing this thing called the Full Metal Alchemist dance. And during that story, I mentioned that this was not the only kind of embarrassing, very cringy thing that I did at that age when I was a young nerd. And so I thought, why not elaborate on that today and talk about more of the cringy and embarrassing things I did when I was a preteen / young teenager. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I hope it brings you some laughs. I hope it brings you some secondhand embarrassment. There's definitely going to be some cringe in here. So to preface these stories, because I feel like it needs a little bit of a preface, these cringy things that I did as a young nerd stemmed from two factors. The first factor was that I really didn't have a lot of friends at that age. And of the few friends that I had, none of them were nerds, none of them shared my interest in fictional media. So I didn't really have anybody that I could go to talk about, you know, anime, gaming, all that fun stuff. The second thing is that I had not yet learned, and this is something that I feel like it probably takes a little bit of time to learn. Maybe just for me, some of you watching may not have had this experience, but looking back, it took me a while to learn that there's a time and a place for you to talk about your nerdy interests, and kind of shoehorning them into conversations whenever you can. It's not necessarily the best. So these two factors caused me to, like I just said, really shoehorn my nerdy interest into every conversation that I had with kind of unwilling participants, and that is what led to these cringy moments. Anyway, so that's a little preface. That is why I did these cringy things as a young nerd, and I feel like it's really just par for the course. Like, it's really just part of growing up as a nerd, as a very enthusiastic nerd. When you're younger, you kind of don't know when to cap it off, right? So anyway, so the first phase that we're going to talk about is my Mario phase. This was when I was 13 years old. I had saved up for a Wii and finally had access to Mario games, and I just fell head over heels in love with Mario. It became my ultimate favorite series. It was my hyperfixation. I was always like living, breathing, thinking Mario at all times, which led to some stuff. It led to some cringe. So I was in grade 8 at the time, so the end of middle school, and there were a few things that I did that were very cringy. Not good. In our English class, we were allowed to write poetry about whatever we wanted. And since I loved Mario and I wanted the world, I wanted my classmates, I wanted everybody to know that I loved Mario, I decided to write Mario poetry. Like, straight up poems, soliloquies about Mario and Mario Kart. And it's as bad as it sounds. And I have actually a whole video, if you guys want to hear the poetry, I actually have a whole video wherein I read all of my Mario poems, and it is a cringy good time. If you guys want to check out that video, I'll link it up there. The main thing though about this Mario poetry was that it wasn't like I just kind of wrote it and nobody ever got to read it except for my teacher. Our teacher would regularly read people's poems out, so you could volunteer to have your poem read out to the classroom. And so I very enthusiastically was like, please read my poem, because again, I needed everybody to know that I really liked Mario. So these cringy, terrible poems about Mario were read aloud to the class by my teacher, and I could tell while the teacher was reading it that she was just dying inside. like looking back, I could tell she was like, what the heck is with this kid? Again, if you want to actually hear the poems, I'll have a link to the video up there. But oh man, right? And all of my classmates, of course, got to listen to this, and they were probably judging me as well, being like, what is with this kid writing Mario poetry, that's weird. Moving on, the next thing that I did when I was a big Mario fan, I would try and guess people's Mario Kart mains, because to me it was kind of like, it's a little bit like astrology, like who you main in Mario Kart says a lot about you as a person. And I'd go up to people in my class and I'd just be like, who do you main in Mario Kart? To see if my answer like was accurate. And most of the time, I was like 99% right on the money. So I was very good at doing this, but it is very weird to have your classmate just randomly come up to you and be like, who do you main in Mario Kart? I think you're kind of Yoshi, but I'm not sure. Like, it was weird. There was this guy in my class who we will call him? We will call him Jackson. It's not his name, but we will call him Jackson for the purpose of this video. Jackson was kind of one of the popular kids, and it was a little bit of a weird kind of relationship I had with him, because sometimes he would be nice to me, sometimes, but most of the time he would tease me for things that I did or things that I liked. So it was kind of weird. He'd kind of teeter between being nice to me and not being nice to me. In my final year of middle school, Jackson and I were in the same tennis class. It was at a rec center outside of school. And there was one day when he wasn't able to get a ride to the tennis class, so he asked if he could come with me and get a ride with me to our tennis class, and I said yes. I'm in the car with my mom and my dad and Jackson, and everything's going well. We're having this conversation, and my parents, they start talking about how they're really big tennis fans and they're always watching it. So I'm sitting there and I really want to know who Jackson's Mario Kart main is. And so I'm sitting there. I don't know why I really wanted to know so badly, but for whatever reason, I really wanted to know who he mained in Mario Kart. This is really important information to me. So I'm sitting there and I'm waiting for the conversation to get to a place where I can like steer it into a direction where I can ask him who his Mario Kart main is. Why is this so important? I don't know. So we're just having this conversation, and so my parents are like, oh yeah, we really like watching tennis, you know, and sometimes we get a little bit too obsessed. And so I say, oh yeah, there's no opportunity for me to play the Wii when you guys are watching tennis. Or something to that effect. I use that as my little kind of swerve in the conversation to try and talk about Mario Kart. And my parents are like, as if they're like, oh yeah, here she goes, talking about the Wii, talking about, yeah, here it comes, right? So they're like, yeah, that's right, you know, not a lot of time to play the Wii. Like they, you know, like, here it is again, here she goes. And Jackson's just kind of sitting there and he's just like, what? And then I turn around, because he's sitting next to me, I turn around and I'm like, so who do you usually play as in a Mario game? And he just gives me this look like, and it's dead silent in the car. It is dead silent. Like, my parents don't say anything. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't even tell me who he mains. And I'm just sitting there like, oh no, this was a mistake. And there's a silence in the car for a little bit until somebody, my parents, I guess, tried to pick up the conversation again. So just like, I'm asking, is this popular guy in school? I've derailed this conversation to ask him who his Mario Kart main is. And I don't get a response because he's so cringed out that he doesn't want to tell me. And nobody says anything. It just causes this dead silence in the car. Like, I think about this regularly. I think about this story regularly, and I just die on the inside. This has just been on my conscience for 12 years. Not good. The final cringy thing that I did during my Mario phase was I had Mario t-shirts that were my pride and joy. Actually, I still have one of them. Hold on, let me show you. So it's very old now, but it's this Super Paper Mario t-shirt that my mom bought for me. This shirt was my pride and joy. I had this and I had a Princess Peach shirt. These t-shirts were my absolute pride and joy. Now, like I kind of said previously, all I wanted to do was talk about Mario at that age. That's it. That's all I wanted people to talk to me about. I would wear these shirts to my tennis class, and I really wanted the kids in my tennis class to talk to me about Mario. Why, like, looking back, it's like, why were you so desperate for this? But like I said before, I didn't have anybody else to talk about my nerdy interests with. So I everybody became an unsuspecting, unwilling participant in my fandom, basically. So what I would do is I would wear these shirts to class, and I'd be like hanging around with my tennis classmates, and I'd kind of puff my chest out and look at my shirt, and then kind of like look at them, and then I'd like look at my shirt to try and draw attention to my shirt, so that people would then ask me about Mario, or talk to me about Mario, or compliment my shirt, or notice and acknowledge Mario in some way or another. And like you can probably imagine, this is not how it happened. This is not what ended up happening at all. My classmates would just look at me like, why is she staring at her own chest? Like, why is she doing that? Like, they just have these confused expressions. None of them would talk to me about Mario. So now we're gonna move on to the next year, which was when I was 14 years old, and that's when I got into my big anime phase. All of you have heard, well, hopefully all of you. If you haven't, I will have it linked up there. But hopefully you guys have all heard the Fullmetal Alchemist dance story. And this one is a little bit similar to the Fullmetal Alchemist dance story. It's a quick story, but like hopefully you'll still get the cringe because it was still there. So I was 14 years old. My parents and I were watching Fullmetal Alchemist together. It became one of my obsessions, and I loved it. Other anime series too, but Fullmetal Alchemist was definitely a big one for me at that age. Just like the Fullmetal Alchemist dance story, this took place at my first ever anime convention, and I decided to enter the costume contest. We're all in the waiting area, waiting to go on. I can't remember if it was the rehearsal or the actual performance that we were waiting for. I think it was probably the rehearsal, but a bunch of us contestants were standing like backstage waiting for our turn to go on stage. I did not know any of these people, because again, this was my first ever anime convention. I didn't have any friends who were into anime, so these were all strangers. And I'm hyped up on that like excited con energy. Like, you have to imagine, you know, I'm at that age someone who has never had a friend base to talk about anime or anything with. And now I'm suddenly in this environment where you're just surrounded by fellow nerds. Like, it's a big deal. Maybe too much of a deal because things get embarrassing. So we're standing backstage, and there's this guy dressed as Luffy, and he is showing off this the Fullmetal Alchemist pocket watch that you can buy at conventions. Do they still sell those? Maybe this was just a 2010 thing, but either way, at least at that point in time, you could go to the convention and buy Fullmetal Alchemist pocket watches like they have in the show. So he was showing it off, and a bunch of, because he knew a bunch of these people, they're like, wow, yeah, that's really cool. Wow, that's really awesome. And he's like, yeah, so now I can cosplay Roy Mustang. Okay, and then I, standing there, eavesdropping on this conversation, like I am not a part of this conversation. I do not know these people, but I get really excited and I butt into the conversation and I'm like, and I could be Riza Hawkeye. And just like in the car ride, the room goes silent. The room just dead silence. Like, that's it. And everyone is looking at me like, what the hell? And the guy with the pocket watch is looking at me like, what the hell? And I'm standing there like, oh no, that was probably a mistake. Again, I was just so excited about people talking about Fullmetal Alchemist, and I also wanted to like proclaim my love of Fullmetal Alchemist and Riza Hawkeye, because she's great and we appreciate her. But like I keep saying, there's a time and a place, and trying to shoehorn yourself into another person's conversation or shoehorn your nerdy interest into just like a totally normal conversation, just, it ain't it, Chief. It ain't it. The bright side of this story is that because of all of these cringy experiences, I learned that, again, there is a time and a place to talk about your nerdy interests, and you know, there's some times when you should, you know, keep a cap on it and maybe not butt into somebody else's conversation just to talk about something that you're really into. Like, because I got so embarrassed because of these cringy experiences, I matured and I learned better. So that's the positive side to this story. So the moral of the story, of course, is exactly what I just said. There's a time and a place for everything, and be mindful of that. If you guys have your own cringy nerd stories, please leave them in the comments. I would just love to hear them. I think that would be so great. I think that'd be so great to share our embarrassing experiences, because I can't be the only one who's had them. Like, there's got to be some good stories out there, and I want to hear them. So please, by all means, leave them in the comments down below. If you are new here and you'd like to see more nerdy videos like these, I do nerdy videos, I do cosplay videos, please feel free to subscribe. I put out a new video every Sunday, and it would be awesome to have you here. Anyway, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed my cringy stories. I will see you guys all next time, but until then, Panda Faces, please be sure to take care. Bye!